session, which is Great EX leads to Great CX. For this, we have Ms. Smiti Bhatt Deorah. Ms. Smiti Bhatt Deorah is the co-founder and CEO of Advantage Club, a global experience engagement platform with features like rewards, recognition, community building, and FlexBen on a unified platform. Currently, Ms. Deorah oversees various functions, including business development, marketing, customer relations, and content operations. So may I request Ms. Smiti Bhatt Deorah to please come up on stage. But before I hand it over to her, I would like to announce that we have a very interesting and inspiring session in the evening at 5:30 p.m. for Genesis 3.0 Ideas Competition live grand finale. For this, I'm pleased to announce our national jury. Mr. Ankir Wariku, I'm sure you know him, founder of Warikru, global educator, content creator. Nandini Mansinga, co-founder and CEO, Mumbai Angels Network. Bhavin Purohit, CTO of Tata Capital. Mr. Rajesh Padmanabhan, Chairman Hono, MD Exo Group and CEO Talavi. And last but not least, Ms. Madhvi Lal, MD, Head HR of Deutsche Bank. So without any further ado, may I now request Ms. Smiti Bhatt Deorah to deliver her keynote address. Over to you, ma'am.
I'm just going to stand. All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming down here today to the event and, coming down here to listen to me talk about great employee experience leads to great customer experience. Can we have the slides put up, please? There you go. All right. So my name is Smiti. I'm one of the founders of Advantage Club. If I could also get a slide mover. There you go. So typically as Advantage Club, we're an employee engagement platform. We have various modules which take care of the entire employee lifecycle experience. So today I'm going to talk about what we've seen in the market in terms of learnings, identifying customer experience and matching it with employee experience. So let's first talk about employee experience and then we'll slowly figure out how it tags to customer experience in general. Employee experience, when we define that term, it typically considers taking care of all of these little moments an employee experiences when they join a company till the time they leave a company. And those moments are typically what define a good experience or a bad experience for any employee. A good experience is where at the end of my tenure with the company, say that, okay, this is a great company to work for, or I leave in a bad note and then, I don't recommend that company to somebody else. Now, all of these moments, they start from when I am about to join an organization. So as an employee, I expect organizations to first find me. Once they've found me, I expect them to hire me. Once I've been hired, I expect a company to induct me. Post-induction, I want them to support me. Grow me, help me wherever I need help in terms of growth as an individual. Develop me in terms of my overall skills, my overall career growth as well. If I do well, I expect the organization to recognize me, to reward me, and eventually offboard me in case I decide to leave with respect. And of course, remember me once I have left the organization. A good experience is what enables, even after an employee has left the organization, to always be proud of their company. Always say that, okay, I am XYZ company. Like, I always say that I'm Microsoft. Why do I do that? Because I've had a great experience while I worked there. Even though I'm not currently working there, I'll always say good things about them because I always had a good experience while working with them. So every moment which an employee spends in the organization matters, and it's a collection of all these small moments which eventually defines a positive or a negative employee experience. Now, how do we define experience in general? So BetterUp had done a study in which they've defined elements of experience as 6 parts. First is authenticity, second is purpose, belongingness, social, basically how I'm interacting with colleagues, how I'm interacting with other people, optimism, and engagement. So let's talk about each one of these guys and figure out how we can attack each of these aspects to build a positive employee experience for our employees. So typically, we always talk about employee engagement and we say that, engagement drives productivity. But honestly, according to BetterUp, relationship between employee experience and productivity is actually 6 times higher than relationship between employee engagement and productivity. And like you can see that engagement is just a part of experience, it's not the heart of experience. So first let's talk about authenticity. Authenticity is how authentic I feel the organization I work for is actually. So typically authenticity can be divided in 3 parts. One is what I see in my organization. That's the visual part of my organizational structure, where I see how people are behaving and then I typically, believe what I see. Second is conversational. When I hear my colleagues talk about the company, is there a negative chatter or a positive chatter in the organization? That also eventually changes my perspective about the authenticity of my company. And the third is experiential. So I see, I hear, and then I also experience myself. I could have heard a lot of bad things, a lot of negative things of my colleagues happening in my company, but my experience could have been good. So that also changes my perspective, or vice versa. I could hear everyone saying very nice things about my organization, but my experience has not been that good. So a cusp of visual, conversational, and experiential is what builds real authenticity from an employee's perspective towards an organization. Second is engagement. Now, engagement typically drives productivity. That is like an obvious thing. But how does it actually drive productivity, and how do we actually drive better engagement? So Harvard Business Review had done this interesting study on drivers of engagement for the US healthcare industry. And while they've done it for the US healthcare industry, I personally feel this applies to every industry all across the globe. So the first primary driver of employee engagement is leadership. And we always talk about it, and most of us don't implement it. So typically, leaders need to walk their talk, right? Leadership is very, very effective in growing the business. Leadership understands how the company is supposed to grow, and the ideology of what leaders believe needs to be actually synced throughout the organization. Typically, if a leader shows sincere interest in the employee well-being, that drives higher employee engagement. If a leader behaves consistently with the core values of the organization, what leaders do is what other people follow them. Similarly, typically demonstrating confidence in a job being done among the junior level employees or other employees is also what drives higher employee engagement for them. Second is typically goals and objective setting for any employee in the organization. As an employee, if I don't have a clear goal or a clear purpose while working in an organization, that makes me less engaged with my company. Third is supervision, where, and again, this is the US healthcare industry, so they talk about supervisors, but in reality, if you look at any organization's perspective, this automatically translates to managers. So managers' role in driving engagement is also really, really important, where managers, one, need to treat everybody with respect, equality, and at the same time, they take feedback seriously. They encourage other people to learn more, grow more in the organization, thereby driving higher engagement. Fourth is stress balance and workload. Reducing stress for an employee does not mean that we just create like this mental wellness webinar or do a meditation session. That is not how stress gets reduced in an organization. Typically, managing a work-life balance means, number one, stress levels of any employee in the organization are manageable. A lot of us make this mistake of under-hiring, and a lot of us also make the mistake of over-hiring. So it needs to be the right balance where stress and workload is actually manageable by people. Second, there is a healthy balance between work life and personal life. Thirdly, flexible work arrangements, and we're all living in that hybrid work module today where some of us are working from home, some of us are working from office, some of us have some certain responsibilities. So the overall flexibility in terms of managing work, how supportive is the organization for that, thereby it drives higher engagement. And lastly, there is enough staff, like I mentioned earlier, we shouldn't under-hire or over-hire in general. Fifth is career development, where if I as an organization are actually helping people learn more on the job or grow overall as an individual, that helps drive higher engagement as well. And overall, these are like the 5 predicators of driving better employee engagement in an organization. Now, the next piece is around optimism. And since optimism is like just one part of it, I've actually split it across 4 parts. Optimism, resilience, mindfulness, and openness. So let's first talk about resilience. Resilience is something which is the overall ability to endure in times of crisis. And we've all seen resilience during COVID, right? All of us had to overall, completely change the organizational structure overnight. We had to all work from home. And people who were able to weather that storm succeeded. People who were not failed. Second is mindfulness, where again, mindfulness typically is the overall mental state of organizations or the mental state of employees at work, where I feel that I'm more aware about my duties, my work, ethics in the organization, and I also know my intentions, and I am kind of in a good place in the organization where I feel that, okay, I'm in a mindful setup. Third is optimism, where it is like basically driving a positive outlook in the organization. Positivity is a really, really important thing, which as a culture, especially as part of culture building, we need to focus on. Positivity or, having positivity or not having positivity can literally kill or work for businesses, in the right sense. So there is always a need to whatever initiatives we do or whatever positioning or whatever messaging we're doing in the organization, it is always in a positive manner. Everything can be said in two ways, and creating a positive culture in the organization overall drives higher experience for employees as well. Lastly, openness, which is the tendency to embrace new experiences and changes in life. Where I am enabling employees to be more creative, being more imaginative, I take their ideas into consideration, and I have some sort of innovation options where I am building new things, and I'm also ensuring that employees feel that I'm part of that entire innovation as well. Lastly, we have purpose and meaning. Now, in purpose and meaning, again, it's divided in three parts. First is, do I connect with the company's purpose? So typically, we have a lot of scenarios, a lot of cultures where employees don't know why they are doing what they are doing. So enabling a culture where people understand what is the purpose of what I'm doing, how does it link with the company's purpose, and does that actually match in my career growth as well? Second is, if I have done a good job, is there a sense of achievement which I have received? Am I getting appreciated for doing good work, which eventually drives more meaning to my work? And we've all seen all of those, job interviews where people are like, I want to switch because I feel my growth is staggered here. I feel that I am not doing something which matters. So if you don't have a purpose towards your work, you will automatically feel disengaged, and then you will start looking out for other roles. Lastly, the third piece around purpose and meaning is how I feel with my colleagues in my organization. So if you're having like a 1,000-employee company, it is 1,000 people working towards a common purpose, a common belief which is driving the organization. It's an insane community of 1,000 people who exactly are in the same boat. So how do we actually build those interpersonal connections between those people, and so that they're not just coming to work for working, they're also building relationships, and that thereby drives higher engagement and creates a bigger barrier for me to leave a job, because then I'm not just leaving a job, I'm also leaving all of these friendships I've made with people, and I'm kind of also slightly afraid that I might not find this culture or these set of people in my next organization. Next is around social connections, since we were only talking about social connections earlier, which also drives purpose and meaning. This is again one of my favorite studies, which I found done by Gallup, where Gallup actually identified what was the work setup, maybe pre-pandemic, which was in 2019, and what is the work setup today, and what is the future of work going to look like. So if you look at this study, what is interesting is that pre-pandemic, 60% of people were actually fully on site. And it's also interesting to me that 32% even pre-pandemic were hybrid. And today, if you look at 2022, and we're almost at the end of 2022 and beyond, their locations are almost at 53%, and preferred locations for employees are almost 60% to be in a hybrid setup, which means that these 60% people who were working from office are probably going to be completely hybrid in the coming years. And how do we then, ensure that that social connection which we were feeling with employees earlier continues even in a digital setup? Because earlier I'd go to office, I'd meet 20 people, 30 people, I'd have coffee with them, we'd have water cooler chats. It creates a community of people which drives better experience, and then I feel more engaged and belongingness towards the organization. But now everyone's remote, everyone wakes up in the morning, I don't even see my clients or my customers or even my colleagues' faces, right? So driving social connections has become incredibly hard now that we're all in a digital fashion. So the only way to drive better social connections for this 60% hybrid model is by digitization, by figuring out solutions or tools or strategies in which people can connect on common interests even beyond the office workspace, even if they're working from home or car or office or even Manali or Lonavala, it doesn't matter. Wherever you are connected to your peers because you have maybe some common groups which connect you together, or there are certain social feeds where you are able to interact with each other, or you even have things like virtual lunches, team lunches happening. So all of those things need to be driven to actually drive better social connections and then thereby creating a better employee experience for employees. Lastly, I come to belongingness, and this is an important piece. This is such an important piece, I can create a new entire PPT on it, but I've split it across 2 slides. First is the objective of managers to drive belongingness. So how do I feel my manager is actually making me feel that I am belonging to this particular organization? So if my manager recognizes my work, second, if my manager gives me constant feedback to improve in a positive manner, third, if I'm having any issue, my manager is responding to my concerns. Fourthly, if they are publicly crediting my contributions, and I say publicly because we should always recognize publicly and criticize privately. Most of us do exactly the opposite, and we also lump recognition with criticism a lot of times where we say, hey, you did a great job, this was good, but these are the 3 things which you could have done better. So recognition should not be lumped with criticism, and recognition should be a public thing, whereas criticism should be a private thing. And lastly, if my manager is empowering me and my team members to grow, to learn, and to actually move forward, that makes me feel more, closer to my organization, and I feel that I belong in this company. As a peer, how can I drive belongingness for others, and how can my peers drive belongingness for me? So if my peers connect with me, and the social aspect comes in here, if my peers connect with me at work and they connect with me outside work, then I feel that, I have a set of my people in the company, and I feel more belonged towards that organization. Second, if my peers give me honest and they give me timely feedback, and peer feedback is very, very different than manager feedback. When my manager gives me feedback, there is a sense of, I'm a little afraid, I'm a little scared. Okay, this is gonna affect my appraisals, am I gonna be fired, am I gonna be, this is gonna affect my overall performance. But when my peer gives me feedback, I take it more positively because, I'm not afraid of that particular feedback. So peer feedback makes a very, very big difference in my performance as an individual because it's a peer and I trust that person and I feel that that person is not gonna sabotage or affect my growth in the company in any other manner. So it's very, very unabashed and transparent feedback. Thirdly, if my peers praise my work or they thank me for my help if I have helped them, peer-to-peer appreciation is one very, very obvious way to do that. Lastly, there's an open and honest communication between peers as well. All of this makes me feel more belonged towards the organization thanks to my peers. So all of these pieces which I've spoken about, we always talk about it, we always try implementing it, but the biggest problem with all of these initiatives which we implement is they're all built towards employers. They're always built towards managers. They need to be built towards employees. We have to put our employees first. We have to all put our head HR, CHRO hats aside and start thinking as an employee that what is it that we want as an employee? That is probably half of what my other employees want themselves. So typically, experience overall is a core driver in productivity, which thereby is also affected by your DEIs and eventually drives a culture. Culture building is what eventually makes or breaks your organization. And if you're looking at employee experience, there are also like 5 factors which impact experience. First, we were talking about drivers. Now we're talking about what impacts experience. One is purpose, which we've spoken about earlier. Second is leadership, again spoken about earlier. Third is technology. When we're in a hybrid workforce, it is also important to drive more technology-driven digital solutions to make people have a better experience, especially when you are work from anywhere. Social structures, strategy, as in what is the objective of running any program. Don't just run programs because everybody else is running programs. Identify how does it match with your company strategy, with your company goals. And lastly, physical infrastructure. By physical infrastructure, again, I don't mean build a fancy office or something. The idea is that if we have employees working from home, do they even have laptops? Do they even have desks or tables or chairs to work from? If we have employees working from office, do we have accessibility for the disabled? Do we have different forms of, options in which people can do a hybrid work, 3 days in office, 2 days out of office? Have we built the right infrastructure and people are not absolutely confused as to how to do it? So typically, to make any organization future ready, you need to eventually drive higher engagement, higher rewarding structures and celebrations in general of every small moment which matters in an organization. And lastly, how does employee experience connect with customer experience? Now, we've all spoken about employee experience. Now, let's speak about customer experience. And Deloitte had done this interesting study where they spoke to like a lot of employees. They spoke to a lot of customers who were actually client-facing, and they had client-facing employees dealing with them. And they identified that employee experience was very important for delivering a better customer service. And thereby, employee experience directly connects with customer experience because happy employees lead to happy customers. So if we are able to fix the employee experience piece, your customer experience automatically gets sorted on its own. So that's pretty much it from my keynote perspective. Thank you so much for listening to me today. Like I said, I'm from Advantage Club. I'm one of the founders, and we have a booth out here. So if you have any questions or you'd like to just discuss what you're doing to drive employee experience, rewards, recognition, we're not going to sell to you. I mean, we would just be happy to discuss. I love understanding what companies are doing in terms of strategies, and I love giving my 2 cents as well. So happy to chat. I'll be right there at the booth, answer any questions or have any interesting discussions over here. Thank you so much for your time today.